Good morning and welcome back. This is World Talks coming to you live from Warsaw. I'm Salia Strzemska. An important summit on artificial intelligence kicks off in Paris on Monday. Many high-ranking officials from Ursula von der Leyen to Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be there. A scientific conference preceding this summit has already started on Thursday. This comes at a time when US AI efforts have been shaken up by the explosive arrival of DeepSeek, the Chinese AI player. To discuss this, I am joined here this morning by Professor Dariusz Jemielniak, Vice President, Polish Academy of Sciences. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us. Much appreciated. So let me start with potential problems with AI, okay? Because I feel like this is a theme. And if we go back to 2023, Steve Wozniak, also Elon Musk and others, they penned this letter about potential dangers of AI. So how much has come into reality, come into fruition by now, and what can we do to be more secure?
Well, we need to be realistic. The progress of AI is really unprecedented. We do not really have any benchmarks for that. So it is pretty scary if you think about it. We're going into the unknown. That's why so many researchers, so many people who deal with AI are really issuing dire warnings that we need to have more social control, more institutional control, maybe a little more regulation. However, it does not really necessarily tap into the political agenda of countries such as China or more recently the United States.
Right. So, I mean, let's talk about China and the US, right? Because on one hand, we have this project Stargate, right? And then the DeepSeek has arrived, and apparently it was done very cheaply. I'm not sure how true these claims are, that they were using old chips, not the new ones. I guess there's some doubt about this. But this rivalry, right, we can see that here. So what are the possible consequences of this?
Well, let me start with saying that more recent discoveries show that in no way it was so cheap as the Chinese claimed. We know that the ballpark is even in billions rather than millions, which is much more realistic. But nevertheless, the development has been much more affordable than we assumed it was possible. It's also open source, which is definitely the biggest game changer, because now anyone can take this model, train it, even port it on their mobile phone, which very quickly will result in a plethora of different applications, different approaches. So this definitely is a game changer, irrespective of how much it costs. However, this rivalry between China and the United States is taking an unexpected turn, because the United States assumed that by limiting access to chips like NVIDIA chips, they will be able to keep the advantage they had. Now, the first thing we know, they do not have the advantage anymore. And the second thing we know is that chips do not matter as much as we assumed, because it's possible to develop very clever AI systems without such amazing hardware, which means that China is probably already getting where the United States thought they would be getting in a year or two. This is definitely a problematic situation. As you remember, China is a country which definitely does not put as much emphasis on privacy, especially privacy of foreign countries, foreign country citizens. So we are in trouble. We definitely need more regulation. We need to basically acts such as those regarding the proliferation of nuclear weapons or some other dangerous technologies. But the problem with that is that with nuclear technology, with nuclear weapons, everybody knew it's just dangerous. It only wreaks havoc and destruction. So people were quite eager to agree we do not need to proliferate them and agree on limiting the technology. With AI, the problem is that the more we develop it, the more huge benefits everybody gets. So until the moment when everything breaks down and we are in trouble, there are huge benefits until this happens. This is the biggest issue.
Right, and we'll discuss that more in a moment, but I wanted to go back to the U.S. restrictions on the export of chips and other technical equipment, because Poland was not included, right, on that list of countries that key allies and partners. I think this is what it was called. It was exempted, so we have limitations. So how serious are these, and shall we be worried? And also, how well is Polish AI industry doing? Because we have the Helios computer, right, in Kraków, but what else do we have?
This is spot on. What you're saying is definitely troubling. I think just the fact that Poland has been singled out, along with the Central and Eastern Europe, as a region which is not as close to the United States as we hoped we would be, is problematic for the political reasons. We wouldn't be able to max out the hardware limits that were imposed. It's 50,000 chips, which could be increased to 100,000 chips. So I wouldn't worry about it that much in short term, even though it's problematic from the point of view of investors. If big corporations were to start data centers in Poland, unfortunately, such a restriction, even if it's just theoretical in the beginning, could unfortunately deter bigger investments in Poland data centers. But a bigger issue here is political. Why do small countries which do not max out those restrictions but are from Western Europe are not imposed restriction? And why are we, quite a large country with huge links to the United States, huge links to the economy in the US, why are we limited? We thought we were a major ally. The reality check says that we unfortunately are not on the radar as much as we hoped. Regarding to what extent we are doing the cutting edge technology in terms of AI, we have quite a number of really amazing projects. So we have 11 labs, which is basically state of the art speech recognition company. We have Campus AI. I'm involved with Campus AI, so I'm not objective here, but it's a company with the largest seed funding in Polish history, and teaching people how to use AI, teaching people how to collaborate with AI. But unfortunately, these are just examples of single initiatives. And as a whole, Poland as a country is not really developing up to its full potential, because we have amazing software engineers, we have amazing machine learning professors, researchers. Piotr Sankowski is just one of many examples, but we are unable to provide an environment that would really help those companies, those initiatives foster. Minister Gawkowski, the Vice Prime Minister and the Minister for Digital Affairs, is trying to initialize an initiative with 1 billion zlotys of investments into AI. I'm very hopeful, fingers crossed, hopefully this initiative will work out. But nevertheless, this is just too little. 1 billion zlotys, it sounds a lot, but if you compare it to the amount of money that is needed to be on the very front of these developments, it's unfortunately just a little too little. So my hope is that we can be a modest player, a modest European player, and that we'll be able to catch up basically with being clever, with coming up with clever solutions, just like the Chinese did with the DeepSeek. If we do not have enough hardware, if we do not have enough money, hopefully we'll be able to compensate with the brilliant young people we have who are really doing amazing things now.
Professor, just a quick follow-up. Any ideas why Poland was not included among these key allies and partners? Any theories are floating, perhaps?
Yeah, so the unfortunate theory is that there is a new division. Like we used to have an iron curtain. What I call it now is basically the silicon curtain. We have a division of the Western Bloc and the Eastern Bloc, and unfortunately, I do not have any better explanation for that, because there's absolutely no reason why Poland is singled out and it's in the same group as Nigeria or Kenya, while there are small countries in Western Europe which definitely do not order as many chips, and they are basically considered to be the close allies. Right. My fear is that Central and Eastern Europe is basically treated as a whole bloc, as a region that is not necessarily within the closest orbit of the American administration. I'll remind you that it's Biden's administration that made this decision. Of course, we should be happy that most likely this restriction will not even come into reality, because there are huge protests from NVIDIA itself, from European Union, and from many major stakeholders. So my hope is that the Trump administration will not follow through. But nevertheless, just the fact that this idea was aired is deeply problematic. Definitely, we are, yeah.
Professor, because we're running out of time, and I want to ask you about this Monday summit that's going to take place in Paris. Any hopes towards it as to what could be established? Any measures, perhaps?
The previous summits were definitely productive. However, I do not have my hopes up for the one that is upcoming, mostly because Trump administration is already announcing they do not want any restrictions. They want to allow basically a free market for AI development, which means that most likely there will be no breakthrough, there will be no agreement on what kind of technologies should be limited. And let me remind you that, for example, the usage of AI for military purposes is still a big unknown. There's AI. Quite a number of technologies are being used. Even just recently proposed a fourth law of robotics, stating that AI systems should not be pretending to be humans and should always identify themselves, because we can expect in the coming year that you will receive quite a number of robocalls from bots that will sound very human. Sometimes they will sound like your friends or close family members, and we will be basically misinformed, disinformed, and tricked into, unfortunately, quite a number of scams.
And don't you think, just to round up our discussion, don't you think that the fact that some tech entrepreneurs are so close to the political establishment in the US is creating a dangerous precedent, and perhaps this could also influence the AI sector?
Definitely. I mean, it's both, of course, it's both an opportunity and a threat. The fact that there will be absolutely no regulation means that the United States, for a little while, will be able to develop quite a number of breakthrough technologies that will be definitely amazing, like the Chinese do. However, the problem that there's no regulation is a two-sided sword. It's unfortunate that we might end up with technologies that will grab much more data than we hope they would, that will allow profiling people. Even the simplest example, let's assume you have a health condition. Most likely, the insurance companies are only trying to profile you. They will know what you have based on the data that you leave here and there, as machine learning allows to combine those data and see patterns where normally we wouldn't. So making some regulation in this regard, so basically making a regulation that they shouldn't be allowed to do too much profiling of your behavior, is something that we need, and it's unlikely to happen in the US in the current government.
Professor Dariusz Jemielniak, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching World Talks, and please stay tuned for more here on TVP World.